We're going to go ahead and get started with today's Lunch and Learn. We'd like to welcome you to our December Lunch and Learn on social narratives. This series is presented by the Lessard Project. We are one of the many programs of the Human Development Center at LSU New Orleans that supports individuals with developmental disabilities across the lifespan. And we are Louisiana's only university center for excellence in developmental disabilities. You can find out more information about all of our programs by scanning the QR code at the bottom or visiting our website that's listed there as well. The Lessard Project provides direct training and professional development, coaching in classrooms, and team action planning to support school districts, teachers, and students throughout the state. Our interdisciplinary team consistently works together to find innovative ways to support inclusive education and community participation for everyone. Our goals for this training will be to understand what social narratives are and their importance in supporting students, learn how to develop and implement a social narrative, and finally, determine if the social narratives are achieving the desired outcome. But before we dive into social narratives, I'd like for you to take a moment and think about all of the social skills that are needed in different environments that you or your students or maybe your child encounter. As we talk about the different environments, feel free to drop ideas in the chat box. First, think about school environments, the classroom, the hallway, extracurricular activities, the cafeteria, even going into the community for field trips or work-based learning. What social skills come to mind that students need to be aware of in these environments? Now, think about life outside of school, going places as a family or as an adult navigating the world around you, going to a job, the gym, a place of worship, festivals, or other places like shopping centers or maybe even court. What social skills come to mind that students need to be aware of in these environments? You might be thinking of voice level, waiting your turn, skills for kindness, honesty. Those are all different social skills that we need throughout different environments that we encounter on a daily basis. All schools have a curriculum that teachers follow for math, science, ELA, and all the other subjects. And this is known as a visible curriculum because it's telling you what to teach based on the academic expectations of that grade level. But have you heard about the hidden curriculum? The hidden curriculum we're talking about is assumed knowledge, the expectations, rules, or guidelines that are not directly taught because they tend to be universally known. It's those rules or guidelines that are picked up by just being observant of others. You know, it's the ones that everybody knows or that seem to be quite obvious or ones that you know better than to. However, our students with diverse needs many times are not able to glean these social rules merely through observation. What we know about the hidden curriculum and teaching social skills to diverse learners is that many times it must be explicitly taught to ensure our students are equipped to function in different environments and situations. Those unstated rules or customs that, if not understood, can make the world a confusing place and cause students to feel isolated or out of it. The hidden curriculum also impacts an individual's social interactions, their ability to manage in the classroom, their ability to get and keep a job, and their ability to live successfully in their communities. So the hidden curriculum is felt in the school, home, community, in emergency situations, on the job, and even in the judicial system. While some hidden curriculum items may seem humorous, the impact of not knowing or fully or following the hidden curriculum can be serious. And if the student lacks understanding in different environments, it can cause them to be ignored, bullied, made fun of, or to be misunderstood. Our Lunch and Learn today is focused on social narratives, which is a great strategy to address the hidden curriculum. So what are social narratives? Social narratives are an evidence-based practice that consists of individualized descriptions of a specific social situation or expectations that a student may be struggling to understand. They provide relevant information to help the student process the situation, explain the feelings and thoughts of others, and describe options or alternative behaviors that may lead to more effective responses. Typically, the social narratives are written from the learner's perspective. So why should we use social narratives? Well, for one, they're relatively easy strategy to create. And nowadays with Google, you can search a topic and there are so many options available that you can adjust to meet your specific needs without having to create something from scratch. They are visual, so they are permanent, whereas words once spoken are gone. We also know that visual is a strength for many learners with diverse needs, so social narratives help them remember and apply what they read. Social narratives can be word or picture based, so they are beneficial to all learners. Social narratives help students learn self regulation, and they improve understanding of social situations, events, and expectations, as well as what others might be thinking. So, learning that perspective taking skill. Additionally, social narratives help individuals adjust to change and or adjust their behavior based on the social situation. And they can address specific issues or difficulties a learner may be experiencing and may include conversation skills, making choices, or transitions. So let's move to the types of social narratives we're going to talk about today. And that will be social stories and scripts, comic strip conversations, power cards, and social autopsy. Most of the research completed for social narratives has been around social stories and power cards. However, we've included the other types that we mentioned because there is evidence to suggest that some learners do benefit from them. So, our first type of social narrative is social stories. Social stories were developed by Carol Gray, and they help learners understand a particular social situation by explaining the situation, describing the viewpoint of others by providing missing information to learners to help them in developing strategies to use in a particular situation. Examples of topics that could be addressed by a social story may include personal space, like the one that you see here, expressing emotions, learning to lose, safety concerns, and many more. The list is really limitless. When writing a social story, you include two types of sentences, directive and descriptive. The directive sentences are positively written sentences that provide the learner with suggestions of what to do in the situation. For example, I will work on staying in my assigned seat, or I will try to tell my teachers I am mad. Descriptive sentences provide information or facts. They define where a situation occurs, who is involved, and what they are doing. For example, I brush my teeth at night before I go to bed. Or some days I'm happy to be at school, and some days I'm angry at school. There are three additional types of descriptive sentences. The first one is cooperative sentences, and those describe how others can help the learner. For example, when I'm mad, my teacher will let me go to the cool down zone. The next type of descriptive sentence is a perspective sentence, and it describes the feelings and reactions of the learner or others in the story, such as when I feel angry, I do not want to do my work. And lastly, of the descriptive sentences is affirmative sentences. And they confirm that the behavior you are teaching is positive for the learner or others in the story. So, in a few minutes, I will feel better and ready to do my work. When writing a social story, Carol Gray recommends 2 to 5 descriptive sentences for every directive sentence. Here's an example of a social story for a student who sometimes comes to school angry and does not like to do his work when he's mad, and often yells or screams in class when he does not want to do his work. And so it says, I go to school almost every day. School is where I do my work. Some days I feel happy to be at school, but some days I feel angry. When I feel happy, I want to do my work. When I am angry, I do not want to do my work. I may yell or scream, I don't want to do my work. I will try to tell my teachers I am mad. Then my teachers will know how to help me. Sometimes they will let me go to the cool down zone or let me take a break. In a few minutes, I will feel better and then I can do my work. I will use my words so that my teachers can help me feel better. When I feel better, I am happy and my teachers are happy. So in this social story, the two underlined sentences are our directive sentences, while the other sentences are descriptive. The next type of social story is a social script. And while they are similar to narratives, they differ from a social narrative in that they provide specific wording or language to the student so that they can participate in a given social situation. So a social script can reduce anxiety in a social situation by providing a language model. They ultimately build confidence and independence and can support self advocacy. It's important when writing a social script to be aware of the language that the student's peers are using so that it matches or resembles what is appropriate for that student's age and setting. Once the student is comfortable with the script as it's written, you'll want to help them generalize the script so they are not using just those specific words and they can use that skill in a variety of settings with different people. Topics addressed with a social script could include conversation starters, phrases to end or maintain a conversation, change the subject, answers to common questions, or develop play skills. This example of a lunch chat has several ways to start a conversation, such as, what did you do for your last birthday? Or what job do you think you'd be really good at? It also includes strategies to maintain a conversation by answering a question, then continuing the conversation. For example, I like to do blank in my free time. What about you? The second example here is a list of questions a student needs to ask for help before they get frustrated. Or it could be a list on their desk as a reminder when they feel overwhelmed to self advocate and ask for help. Next, we'll talk about comic strip conversations. These were also developed by Carol Gray, and they are simple visual drawings of a conversation, typically using stick figures and thought bubbles to indicate what others might say, do, or think to help support social understanding. When creating comic strip conversations, it's important that the adult and learner work together so the student is actively engaged in breaking down the situation to explore their feelings as well as consider the perspective of the other person, as well as looking for different or more effective outcomes. Typically, the learner is the one who draws the illustrations during the discussion, but certainly the adult can help with the drawings if needed. So let's look at an example of a comic strip conversation. This one is about how to respond honestly, but without hurting someone's feelings. The learner in this situation tells her friend Susan that she doesn't like her hair when she asks. When Susan gets upset and responds, well, at least I don't look like you, then the learner's feelings are also hurt and she doesn't understand what she did wrong in being honest. So, through creating this comic strip conversation, the learner is able to come up with a better response after talking through the other person's feelings and realizing that her direct response was hurtful to that other person. You end the comic strip conversation with a summary sentence to kind of sum up the lesson that was addressed. So, in this example, the summary is, being honest is important, but sometimes being too honest can hurt people's feelings. Our next type of social narrative is power cards. These were developed by Elisa Gagnon to help a learner understand rules and expectations while using a learner's special interest when describing the expectations or rules during a specific situation. Power cards are particularly useful when a problematic behavior needs to be reduced. Power cards are written from the perspective of a child's hero or special interest and describes how the hero solves the problem. These are very good for younger kids who are really into, like Mario or Princess Peach or some of those real common characters that are popular. Power cards typically contain two parts. The first part being the social narrative, where the hero or special interest attempts to solve a problem and then encourages the learner to try new behavior that is broken down into 3 to 5 steps. The second part is the actual power card, and it's typically the size of a trading card or a business card. They can even be the size of a bookmark as well. But they can contain a small picture of the special interest and then new strategies from the script. So in this example, Mario and Luigi are helping our student learn the value of cleaning up after a center or an activity. And the steps included on the power card are: one, clean up the toys in my center after I'm done playing; two, friends help each other; and three, I'll be number one like Mario when I help my friends clean up. Wahoo! Apparently, Mario says that a lot. So in this next example, Fireman Steve is helping to establish a bedtime routine for one of our students. And the steps are: one, taking a bath, brushing teeth, and reading for 15 minutes before turning off the light; two, instructing the learner to close their eyes and lie still; and then three, staying in bed after the lights are out. And so Fireman Steve, there was a narrative with this one, but it was not legible. It was handwritten. So I just kind of summarized what the power card looked like. Our final type of social narrative is a social autopsy, which was developed by Richard Lavoie. And they are utilized with learners after a social error to help them understand the error or their mistake, and then assist with an alternative solutions by discussing the situation to aid in better understanding of what went wrong and what could be done in the future. In this first example is both text and picture based, and it addresses a student who was laughed at by a peer for talking about dressing like a superhero. It made the student very angry, and he yelled, "You're a stupid jerk," during class. So this social autopsy breaks down calling people names and yelling in class is not appropriate responses, and that a better response next time could be to take some deep breaths, calmly tell the peer not to make fun of other people, and to ask the teacher for help. This example is mainly picture based. So this strategy, as all of the strategies, can be completed for all learners' needs, even for those who are pre-readers or just learning to read. To create a social story, you're first going to want to review what happened, and then identify the mistake or error that was made. Identify who was hurt or harmed by the mistake. Identify what to do to fix the mistake. And so it might be an apology, a fist bump, writing a note, and then the fifth thing is to develop a plan so that the error doesn't happen again by identifying strategies the student could use the next time to address the situation. So now we've talked about what they are, what social narratives are, why we want to use them, and the types of social narratives, but how do we actually do it? Well, the first step with any good strategy is a plan. And so we want to start by identifying the social situation or the skill that our student is having difficulty with, what setting it's occurring in, the situation that is creating difficulty for our student, and what skills specifically they need to develop. Then we will select the type of social narrative to use, and the format that we want to use, as far as if it's going to be text only or if it's going to be photograph based, a combination of both, whatever is needed to support the level of the learner. And then next, we will actually write the social narrative and then determine when the social narrative will be utilized. Also, we'll want to include consideration for the durability and the portability of the social narrative, whether it needs to be laminated, the size, if it's going to be portable, all of those things and how we're going to implement the strategy, we'd want to decide as we plan our social narrative. And then lastly, we want to observe the student in the setting or situation to collect data before we implement the social strategy. Next, after we've created our social narrative and we want to implement the strategy, we first want to introduce and read through the social narrative with the learner, being sure to explicitly teach any of the strategies or the scripting that they may have difficulty with. And then we want to review the narrative as a regular part of the student's schedule. When, where, and how often you review the narrative will depend on the student's needs. In the beginning, it will need to be more often and right before the student is most likely going to be confronted with that situation. The narrative may also need to be available and visible during those difficult situations so it can be referenced. As the student becomes more familiar with the story, maybe just reviewing it at the start of the day would be enough. Lastly, we always want to monitor our strategies for effectiveness. I already mentioned that data should be collected on the targeted skill or behavior before implementation of the social narrative. And of course, we will want to collect data once the implementation has begun. If the student is making progress, that's great. You're on the right track. But if not, you may need to rewrite or adjust the social narrative or look at when it is being utilized and if the timing needs to be altered. Once determined that it is an effective strategy, you may consider utilizing it to target new skills or behaviors. You will also want to determine if the strategy needs to continue or if it can be faded out. In wrapping up today's Lunch and Learn, social narratives are a great strategy for addressing the hidden curriculum by promoting understanding of social situations and providing them with skills that can lead to more effective social responses or behaviors. Social stories and scripts, comic strip conversations, and power cards and social autopsy are the social narratives we discussed today. Planning, implementing, and monitoring are all important steps to create a successful strategy. Here's a list of resources available for implementing social narratives that we referred to throughout the Lunch and Learn. I think we're going to try to drop in the chat box those 3 websites. Yep, there they are. And so if you want to copy and paste those so that you have them for future reference, they are great resources on how to use these strategies effectively. And if you would please take a minute and complete our training survey by scanning the QR code or going to the bit.ly address that's on the screen, we would appreciate it as it helps us provide topics that meet your needs for the future. And then be sure to mark your calendar and join us for our next Lunch and Learn on January 10th on data collection. And we have a little bit of time left over if there's any questions that we could answer for anyone. You want to unmute or drop it in the chat box. Will we get a copy of the slide deck? It will be on the lassard.org website in the next couple of weeks. Melinda, I don't know what the timeline is for that, but yes, it will be available on our website at lassard.org.